as you start remembering the happier times, it sort of gives you permission to have happy times.
Well, hello everyone. Welcome. Today I have special guest Miss Nancy Johns, and we also have special guests Cletus and Magnolia here. Cletus decided to take a nap, and Magnolia's taking a bath. And it's very nice to have the two lovebirds join us today. So, I want you to introduce yourself and tell us where you grew up, a little bit about.
Okay. My name's Nancy Johns, and I've lived here a lot of years. 45, 50 years in there. But I grew up in the Portland, Oregon area, so I'm officially a Webfoot. That's what we called ourselves. I came to Florida because my husband wanted to move to Florida. And I wasn't happy with the move or with the whole idea of moving. But my family said, you have to go where your husband takes you. If he wants to move to Florida, then you move to Florida. So away I went. And that was, I first came into the Orlando area. And way back then, we flew, and the airplane landed on a grass runway, and they put a ladder up against to climb down. When we got out of the plane, where we got on a plane with all the normal airport facilities, and here at Orlando International, you climbed down a ladder onto a grass runway. And then they put out some of those banquet style tables that fold and unfold, and they're inexpensive, so you can get a pile of them when you got a pile of people that you need to have tables for. That's what they used for the luggage. I was so not impressed. And I couldn't understand how anybody could live here. But it didn't take me too long. We ended, before I just loved it. We ended up in the Miami area, and I was swimming in the beach every day. Just loving the warm, I had never felt anything like warm salt water to swim in before. I absolutely loved it. And that was like in the fall. And I kept swimming every single day, every single day, every single day, every single day. It was just absolutely wonderful. It was fantastic in the summertime. And then when it got to be the next year, a funny thing happened. The water got cold. Because I was already acclimatized to Florida. And I ended up not ever wanting to leave here. I have enjoyed it so much.
All right, so you're a widow.
Mhm.
I want you to tell me a little bit about your relationship with your husband, what that was like.
He was a truly great man. He was amazing. He had so much energy and so much vitality, and there's no way I could keep up with him. And he used to tell me that he would make sure I lived to be 120, and he would like die a year after I died because he'd have a broken heart. And I believed him.
Tell me what it has been like to be a widow.
Well, you got to go through the grief. There's no way around it. But as your body processes the grief and mind processes the grief, then you start remembering the good things and not the bad things. The it's like my husband is frozen at 57 in my memory, so I've never seen him become weaker than he was. I never had to lose him by little pieces because his death was sudden. And that's a kind of a blessing. I've seen people that have gone 4 or 5 years losing a spouse due to some illness or a situation that's developed due to an accident. And it's like every day they're losing them just a little bit more, and there's nothing they can do. But I didn't even have a chance to say goodbye. As you start remembering the happier times, it sort of gives you permission to have happy times. And so I started to do one little thing or another little thing. And I started to notice that I was making choices that were things that Jack wouldn't have said, let's do this. Hey, babe, let's do this. They were things that I was thinking, I'd like to do this. For a while, I was doing things that were like a checklist, probably for more than a year. Like, he had this project started, I've got to finish it. He wanted to sometime do this other thing, so I've got to finish it. He wanted to go over here, so I've got to go and see what that place is like. And I revisited places, like when we went to Key West, I revisited the same places that we went. We went to St. Augustine. I went and did the same things that Jack and I had done together. One strange thing that happened when he died, he had a favorite restaurant. I can't even remember the name of it now, but he had a favorite restaurant in Frostproof. And I went to the restaurant to eat at his favorite restaurant, and it was closed. The person that owned it had died, and it never reopened. Then I went to another place in Davenport that he really, really enjoyed, and that place was plowed under and had become a parking lot. It seemed like if I was going to try to live my life in the past, there were going to be no places that I could go to, it seemed. And so I started to have ideas on my own, and I started to notice that a lot of the things that I was choosing were not things that he had chosen. And I had a passion for tent camping, and I was active in Florida trails before we got married. That wasn't his idea of a good time. And he insisted that when we camp, we use an RV, and that was camping. And we went a lot of places and we had a lot of fun. But after about maybe 6 years of holding on to the RV concept, I started to go, you used to love tent camping. You used to be nuts over canoes. You used to not want to have these noisy motors around you. And maybe it's time now to start looking at that. And so, little by little by little, I disentangled myself from what he considered the best way to do things.
Will you tell our audience where you sleep every night?
Well, I love tents. I absolutely love tents. And I love the patterns of the leaves on the wall of the tent. When the weather's good, I like to see the sunrise and I like to see the sunset, and I just love listening to the birds and the crickets and all the goings on. It's it makes me feel very good. And I was declining, and I heard about this thing called grounding, and I started to try to practice that within my dwelling, and it just was hard to do. I didn't feel that I was getting the benefit inside of walls and under a roof that I should get. When I started, I wasn't as capable as I am now physically.
Can you tell us what grounding is?
Oh, okay. Well, grounding is just simply being in touch with the earth below our feet. And the principles say that if you are close to the ground as you sleep, that your recovery is greater than if your body is isolated from the ground. And there's all sorts of concepts about hooking wires to electrical grounds and then sleeping where those wires can ground you to the actual electrical grounds of the building that you're in. But I didn't find that that was doing anything for me. But I did find that I always felt better after I was camping. A friend, before I started all this, a friend informed me that we were just, she's a sweetheart, she's local to here, but she informed me that we were just too old for the things we used to do, because she laid out onto the ground one day just over behind her house, and when she got up, her husband was with her, and it was like he had to help her get up, and they were both stiff and uncomfortable, and she was going, no, it's too late for us. And she's far younger than me. Well, I keep feeling I'm proving her wrong, that if you but do it, then you become younger, because I have more vitality now than I did 10 years ago.
And you attribute that to
The
grounding and
yeah.
sleeping in a tent every night.
Yeah. And lots of fresh air.
That's
Fresh air is another
incredible.
thing that I gave up for Jack because I like to always sleep with window open. And he insisted that night air was not good for you, so the window had to be shut. And I think that was the very first thing that I did, like 3 days after he died. I looked at the window and went, well, now you're not here to tell me I can't open the window. So I'm opening the window.
Do you feel like you found a sense of freedom in his passing?
Oh, it's not like a freedom because there's nothing I wouldn't give to have him with me again. But I don't want to replace him. I still feel married to him.
And that's why you've chosen to remain single, for lack of a better word.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It feels like the right thing to do. He used to tell me that if we were true to each other, we would be with each other after we died. And that to me was a beautiful thought. When he actually died, I thought that my life would end quickly, but it didn't. So,
Have you found any blessings?
yes.
Can you talk about that?
Yes. Well, it felt like while we were married, he was a fitness coach for many people, and very motivational, and he just kept me at my peak all he could. Just, that was his little personal mission, and it was wonderful. And after he died, I really started falling apart. Yeah, just like one little thing after another, after another, after another. But I don't think I had a strong will to live until I started to build a life that I could imagine instead of trying to live the life that he had created for the two of us. And it wasn't that I gave up his things, but it was important for me to look back at what had been an important issue and the things that I had set aside. So I started to put some of those just some of those ideas that dawned on me. A lot of them were from things that I did in the past. And I started to get involved in like groups that had planned hikes and things like that. And we had a camper van, and I kept that for a long time. And I got other recreational vehicles. It took me a long time before I started to put the two and two there, but there was always, it's like when I would see people paddling a canoe, they would have big smiles on their face. Or people paddling a kayak, big smile on their face. And then I'd see the captain at the helm of the big boat. And that man did not have a smile on his face. The crew was having a good time. The guests were having a good time. But the captain is a nervous wreck. Because they're responsible for all the lives on board. And the bigger the boat is, the less good of a time they seem to have. So I started thinking back smaller again and doing and canoeing again, kayaking, doing little. I got into Airbnb and doing things at different Airbnbs and going with friends to different Airbnbs and exploring things that just sounded unique and fun. And I still do that. But now, more often, I found that you can get campsites at Airbnbs, and some of them are amazing. And there's a place called Hip Camp on the internet that is like Airbnb, only it's more camping orientated. And you can find some truly remarkable experiences.
It sounds like you've been able to create new adventures and kind of start your own journey.
Yeah. It seems when I decided first time, okay, I'm going to pitch a tent. You know, the first time after, I didn't have any camping equipment. So I was starting from scratch. What am I going to do? How will I best do it? And I couldn't, at that point, I couldn't get up if I was down onto the ground without a whole lot of discomfort. It wasn't easy. Now I pop up and down like nothing. But
and you attribute that to grounding and
Yeah.
the benefits from it.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I started on a cot. And I would sleep on the cot. And it was good. But after about maybe 2 years, 3 years of sleeping on a cot in a tent, which was fun, but after that period, I at one point I had 2 little girls that we were camping. Often I camp in a group, and in this group there were 2 little girls that wanted to spend the night in my tent, and so their mommy can have like a little break from her family. And so that it was like, okay, we can do that. And one of them really thought that the cot just looked like what a princess would sleep in. It was so fabulous. So I said, okay, I'll sleep on the ground and you sleep on the cot. So she did, and she absolutely loved it. She even brought her mama's mask to wear over her eyes because she figured a princess that was sleeping on a cot should wear a mask to cover their eyes. But in the meantime, I didn't wake up stiff. I didn't wake up sore, and I had no problem. Hi! Oh my goodness, cutie, cutie, cutie.
Oh no, don't, oh my gosh. Not my special friends, Cletus and Magnolia.
Hey, dinner. We brought you dinner. Yeah. What happened to some of your tail? Huh? What happened to some of your tail?
Nancy. Look at them. They're playing.
Ah. I've never seen anything like that.
Isn't that just wonderful?
Mm-hmm.
If you could give young people some life advice, what would you say?
I would say, don't try to grow old too soon. The time when you have fewer responsibilities is a time for you to explore yourself and your potentials. And if you let somebody else jump in, there's a reason that so many first marriages end in divorce. And that's that the participants had some growing to do. And and if you let that growing unfold, you'll know yourself better and will be a better spouse to your future husbands and wives.
I have to say I completely agree with that because I didn't meet my soulmate Will until I was 32, and I'm so thankful I didn't get married young and settle down young, and I was able to really grow into myself and see exactly what it is I want in a partner. So that is excellent advice. Looking back over your life, would you do anything differently?
Well, I wouldn't want to have not experienced any of the things that are what made me what I am now. So where there is sorrow and where there is loss, there's growth. So I don't think I would change anything. I wouldn't mind following my own advice, but then I would have missed out on 2 children. And I wouldn't change that. So, um, mm, I guess if I would say anything, it's that when you find yourself in a time of grief, and that will happen, there's going to be some loss during your life. When you find yourself in a time of grief, that's not permanent. There will be healing, and there you will find something to smile about through that. Reason to remember the things that that brought you joy surrounding that time. And like whatever the sorrow is, when you come out the other side, you come out the other side a matured person, a more matured person, a person who knows then how to lend a hand when they see a friend that is suffering. And you become much more compassionate because of experiences that wouldn't have been your first choice.
Well, Nancy, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom and your story. I think it's going to touch a lot of people, and I truly appreciate it. And any final thoughts?
There's a silly little song about count your blessings one by one, count your blessings, see what God has done. Just be ready to thank Him every day for a wonderful thing that He has brought to your life. And guess what? He's going to shower something even more spectacular upon you. I just see it over and over again, that live a life that is touched often by the hand of God. And I am so glad He cares so much for me. And I do not feel like I'm a person alone.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I hope that the camera picks up his purring.
Did you have something to say, Magnolia? I don't know if y'all heard that, but she was just purring.
Mm-hmm. Look at, there we go.
There she is. Actually, I think that's Cletus and not Magnolia. Here comes Magnolia. The males and females, they're almost identical. The females are just slightly smaller. But it's been so wonderful to have them be a part of this interview today, and, you know, to talk about your love story. And you are similar to them, and that they mate for life. And that's how you've lived your life too. As a not, you know, going to another partner. Because what you said earlier about cranes, when one dies, it's very rare that they'll meet another partner. They're very monogamous birds, and I think that's wonderful. All right.